On avait eu cette discussion avec Philippe pour la traduction en français de son livre.
Oui.
Et que c'est une question difficile. L'une des idées, je crois, sur laquelle il s'est arrêté pour l'instant, mais c'est pas encore fixe. Donc, s'il y a des idées dans la salle, c'est intéressant. C'était de la terre, justement, parce que c'est pratiquement intraduisible de faire ce. Il n'y a pas d'extraterrestre, il n'y a pas d'extraterrien. Donc, c'est voilà, c'est une autre extérien peut-être.
Oui, moi je pensais à extérien ou exterrestre. Mais oui.
Oui, je crois qu'il hésite avec exterrestre.
Il y a devant quelqu'un qui souhaite réagir.
The translation of Mediterranean is Mediterranee. So the translation of exterranean would be exterranee, is what I'm saying.
Thank you.
I have a question to Baptiste, which is, do we know anything about modifying affect? And you sort of said that some affect had been kidnapped, like the exploration, which become, and that it could be unkidnapped or freed, so to speak, right? I mean, do we know anything about what does it mean to change affect?
I think, you hear me? I think there's an answer. You practice yourself, and it's called art, no? Art is one of the great forces of modifying affects and trying to capture some drive, going outside to get back inside is with images, with discourses, with figures, is some way to re-affect an old drive of progress, for example. Maybe I misread you, but I think that's what you wrote about progress. That progress was misled, but we couldn't throw it away. We had to take it back. We had to reroute this effect. So how do we do it? Yeah, the first real answer is I truly don't know, but I think one of the great forces is art in symbolic forms. We can retrace in the history of arts the transformations of affects, of major affects. So if it happened, I don't know. I don't think it could not happen now. The true problem is we don't have any decisional power on it.
Yes, thank you, Baptiste, for your excellent talk. I was very interested in it, and I feel many similarities between what you think about stranger, alienness, and also the wonder at the end. And even though your system of thought is very different from mine, but that's why I was very interested in what you say. I have two questions. The first one will be about the relation between what you said about Solastalgia and the uncanny, the unheimliche, the inquiétante étrangeté. I think it's not the same, but I would like to know if you can elaborate something about that. And my second question is about exploration. So if we are not at home any longer, would you say that the main goal of this new form of exploration, that will not be a colonial kind of exploration, no doubt about that, I would like to know whether or not the goal is to be at home again. It's a trap. It's a trap. And so you see, the problem is that if exploration is the goal of this exploration, is it possible? Is it a good thing?
Yeah.
Or should we live in a state of constant disorientation? So
yeah, sure. I see. Yeah, sure. First question, I'm not enough expert of the uncanny to see the relationships between the two affects, I think there is something of uncanny. Uncanny. What's the word? Yeah, inquiétante étrangeté. Yeah, there is this kind of affect in Solastalgia, and it's inside the fact that the familiar, the once familiar, becomes absolutely strange. But I couldn't elaborate more on that, and I'm quite obsessed with your second question, so that's why. In fact, the first doesn't interest me because the second is it's a great question. So my first answer is that I don't think at all that the goal would be to come back at home in the same sense. And the kind of problem I'm dealing with here is what does it mean to stabilize relationships and status to living beings? What kind of stabilization are present here? I could answer you while making this problem land in history of modernity. My problem with the kind of home modernity invented is that it made homogeneous the status and the relationships we could set up with living beings. And my first answer would be it's another kind of home when you don't try to homogenize, homogeniser, merci, relationships and status. The second kind of, so you see, my answer is, my most honest answer is I don't know, but I'm trying to point at leads. The second lead is I love a distinction made by Gilbert Simondon between not only stable and unstable, but he adds the idea of metastable. I think the idea is that unstable world, unstable relationships are not habitable. We cannot inhabit a world with strictly unstable relationships. But he adds that stable relationships are not habitable. So the idea is what could be metastable relationships. And so it engages in a second direction. And the third direction is, I think, what fascinates me about that is that what is unexplored in this world? It's not deserted lands far away. It's the relationships between living beings. The nature of what is unexplored are relationships. And if you take seriously what biology tells us, is that the nature of living beings and of relationships is variation. So each relationship is unique, and while transforming is never the same. So in a way, everywhere, exploring cannot give you a home in which you stopped the necessity of exploring while having the definitive laws of nature. There are no more laws of nature. They are just a cohabituation between you and the habits of your place, of the living beings around, of the bees, and these habits are quite regular and also change. So it's this game with these two dimensions that I think allows us to think that the kind of home is not the same.
I actually have a question following on that. First, you said that one of the implications of this solastalgia is that we are facing a world in which our relationship to the non-human is no longer stabilized. But was it, or is this idea that our relationship is stabilized is a modern naturalist construction? That's my first question. And second, I was very interested in the symmetrical inversion, and I was thinking of the question of the hospitability, which is what we usually talk about when we talk about climate refugees or refugees in general, and the exploration as being maybe the opposite term of hospitability. But I was thinking maybe a figure we could think of to escape the colonizer, figure of the colonizer, with the nomad, which is also having this kind of immobile movement. And yeah, I was wondering if you had thoughts on that.
Yeah, thank you for those questions. Have we ever stabilized anything? So, the concept of stabilization of relationships comes from animism. It comes from Philippe Descola. The idea that the definition of the cosmos in animalistic worlds is that we have stabilized quite known relationships with living beings around. So the monkey is my, how to say beau-frère en anglais? Is my stepbrother, is like analogous to my stepbrother, so it implies I must treat him in some kind of way, and it's quite clear. What is a step brother? It is someone which belongs to my family, so I must keep honest with him, but in the same way it belongs to another family, and it's always disturbing, annoying me. And the problem is to keep diplomatic relationships with a stepbrother, which is the monkey. I must keep good relations with him, but in the same way, it's not really a friend. So this is what means stabilizing relationships in animism. I think the first signification for me of this concept is the idea that we thought, and maybe it's an answer, it's in the representations first. We thought in the modernist project that we knew who they were. We thought we know who bees were. We thought we know who the earth was. We thought we know what a human was. And so we thought we know how to enter in relationships with them. So the second aspect of a stabilized relationship, which is not quite in the order of representations here, is in the order of the practices. The complex of agronomy, scientific agronomy, and agrobusiness is kind of a stabilization and diffusion of one kind of relationship which we want stabilized. When we say we must be able to grow the same wheat everywhere independently of all conditions, we are trying to expand a certain form of stabilization. So stabilized relation is, we say in French, une abstraction réelle. It's a Marxist concept. It's a kind of an idea, but it lands in some kind of practices which try to stay stable, to last long, and the form of these relationships stabilized take, it's just nothing more but institutions, economical institutions, practical institutions. So they have this double face. And for your second question, I don't know if I understood you, but I think what I understood is quite great for me. Is that the idea that if there is an inversion between the human who was the stranger and the environment who was immutable, and now the environment is the stranger, maybe we can think the specificity of the kind of exploration like the hospitality towards this new stranger. Exploration is the hospitality to the environment as a stranger. Why do I prefer the explorer to I pick up the explorer and not the nomad? It's because I think I really think that we can't separate the transformation of practices and the transformation in knowledge. So I need some kind of character which is engaged in this double, strange double dimension, which is epistemological and political. That's why the place I wanted to go, but I didn't have time, is to say the kind of exploration that interests me is the diplomatic exploration. Mm-hmm. It's not at all strictly scientific exploration. It's an exploration in which the transformation of the ways of inquiry, of investigation, induce transformation in the kind of relationships we can invent, and that's why the explorer is more obvious than the nomad. But there is a true problem in this story, and I will end up on this. It is possible that once we remove from the explorer all the phallocratic aspects, all the nationalist aspects, all the imperialist aspects, all the colonialist aspects, it is possible that it won't stay anything in the figure.
That's a true question.
This is just a quick addition to this. We had a colleague here, Asia Jabar, who was a wonderful writer, a wonderful colleague, and she was often described and liked to call herself a nomad, but she'd call herself a nomad of imagination. So that might be an extra layer in this exploration.
Well, I see that we are running out of time, so we're going to continue the conversation during the break. Thank you so much.
Thank you.